Welcome to The Explainer. Look, if you're a C-suite educational leader, a vice-chancellor, or an IT director shaping the future of African education right now, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're breaking down the truly profound institutional implications of the African Continental Free Trade Area, or AfCFTA, Digital Trade Forum 2026. We are going to cut right through the noise. We're looking at how aligning your technical infrastructure with your institutional strategy is no longer just a nice-to-have, but an absolute critical necessity for survival.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The outcomes of the AfCFTA Forum mark, quote, a definitive end to local technological isolation, end quote. The rollout of the Digital Trade Protocol is actively creating a single, legally binding continental market for digital services and virtual learning. For your institution, this means an urgent mandate for systemic transformation. You know, you're being repositioned by external policy forces, whether you're ready for it or not.
So here is our roadmap for the next few minutes. 1. The AfCFTA imperative. 2. Pillar 1. Secure infrastructure. 3. Pillar 2. Data governance. 4. Pillar 3. Human capacity. 5. Pillar 4. Strategic alignment. And finally, 6. The unspoken governance crisis.
Starting right off with Section 1, the AfCFTA imperative, repositioning tertiary education.
To really grasp what's at stake here, just look at the massive cross-border digital skilling partnership recently launched between the federal government of Nigeria and Google. It is a massive step for institutional harmonization across the continent. We are moving away from a legacy model where an institution is just a passive, localized degree awarding body over to the new AfCFTA standard. Under this new standard, your institution absolutely must function as an active pipeline architecture for a highly integrated Pan-African digital economy. If your internal academic structures, student databases, and hosting protocols aren't aligned with these cross-border standards, well, you're facing immediate administrative friction and, honestly, strategic obsolescence.
To effectively cut through the noise and navigate this systemic shift, we need a clear lens. So we'll be using the Webhostville 4-pillar AI Readiness Framework. This breaks the challenge down into 4 logical, actionable steps: secure infrastructure, data governance, human capacity, and strategic alignment.
All right, moving on to Section 2. Pillar 1, secure infrastructure, or the secure engine room.
So, the technical sessions at the forum laid down some explicit new operational guidelines. Domestic educational resources must now be hosted on secure, sovereign cloud environments right here within West Africa. This is explicitly designed to eliminate reliance on ungoverned offshore hosting. And those legacy bottlenecks, they are a massive liability in this environment. We're talking about isolated physical computer labs that are just crippled by high capital expenditure and volatile domestic power grids. The modern solution requires real institutional agency. Forward-thinking leaders have to pivot away from those high capex physical labs and start leveraging public-private partnerships. By embracing managed cloud services like Google Workspace for Education, you guarantee secure, scalable, and continuously available access.
Which brings us to Section 3. Pillar 2, data governance, moving beyond the black box.
Right now, federal regulatory agencies are pushing a unified framework to synchronize domestic educational credentials with cross-border digital commerce infrastructure. Basically, a qualification earned in Nigeria must be digitally verifiable across all AfCFTA member states. And wow, this exposes a severe vulnerability in legacy systems. Traditional university administrations rely heavily on manual verification. That comes with immense administrative overhead and keeps the institution completely isolated. In stark contrast, interoperable cryptographic ledgers offer instant verification and total cross-border compatibility. If an institution is slow to adopt these modern student information systems, it isn't just inefficient, it is operating with an active security vulnerability. But here's the catch. To integrate with these continental ledgers, your data architecture has to strictly conform to the Nigeria Data Protection Act and what we call the FATE principles. FATE stands for fairness, accountability, transparency, and explainability. Without transparent and auditable data practices that adhere to these exact principles, an institution will hit a brick wall. It simply will not be able to interface with the emerging Pan-African systems.
Let's jump to Section 4, Pillar 3, human capacity and the evolution of educators.
Look, we absolutely cannot talk about technology without talking about the people running it, right? With Google deploying massive advanced cloud and AI skilling tracks directly into tertiary academic pipelines, expectations are completely shifting. Enter the teacher architect. Faculties can no longer be mere content conveyors. A teacher architect possesses high AI fluency, they act as an ethical gatekeeper for algorithmic outputs, and actively design complex AI-mediated learning pathways. The problem is, legacy structures rarely provide the continuous professional development needed for this. Institutions have to systematically build this internal capacity, otherwise they risk falling into a passive technological dependency instead of driving genuine mastery.
Next up is Section 5, Pillar 4. Strategic Alignment, our SDG 4 litmus test. So, the AfCFTA Digital Trade Protocol essentially wipes out trade barriers for educational software, effectively multiplying your potential market size across the entire continent. But accessing that market requires rigorous alignment. You have to measure your tech spend against global benchmarks and UN SDG 4, which is the goal for universal quality education, just to ensure these investments are actually developmental equalizers. You must validate your return on investment using real-world workforce metrics, and crucially, you need modular credit transfers and dual-certified degree tracks. Failing this litmus test will actively, undeniably widen the skill gap between traditional degrees and the real demands of the Pan-African labor market.
Moving right along to our next section, critical gaps, policy versus reality. As a strategic partner, it's my duty to apply some rigorous critical thinking here and point out the missing data in the forum's communiques. There is a heavy top-down policy bias at play. The expectation is that just ratifying a continental protocol magically translates to campus-level execution, assuming rapid cloud migration and enterprise cybersecurity. But the campus-level reality is quite different. There are profound disparities between urban apex universities and sub-regional centers. Furthermore, there is a glaring, distinct lack of state funding models to help resource-constrained public universities actually finance this enterprise-grade architecture.
And that leads us to the final, and honestly most critical part of our analysis today, the unspoken governance crisis, the root cause. This brings us to the core executive summary of everything we've discussed so far, the unspoken truth about why digital transformation is truly stalling in African higher education. The bottleneck isn't a deficit of hardware, and it isn't a lack of grand policy frameworks. The true challenge is an internal governance crisis. It's the persistent absence of systems thinking within the university C-suite. For way too long, institutions have treated digital infrastructure as an ad hoc procurement exercise, just something pushed off to isolated IT departments. But digital infrastructure must be an integrated board-level strategic imperative.
I want you to ask yourself a seriously critical question. Take a hard look at your own campus. Is your leadership actively redirecting capital away from fragmented physical infrastructure and toward enterprise-grade data governance, secure clouds, and human architecture? Or will your institution remain an isolated observer while the rest of the continent builds a hyper-connected marketplace? Navigating a shift this massive is incredibly complex. If you are ready to evaluate your roadmap and practically apply the Webhostville 4-Pillar AI Readiness Framework to your institution, connect with us at webhostville.com. Drop us an email or find us on LinkedIn and X. But I'll leave you with this final thought. The blueprint for a connected, Pan-African digital economy is already drawn. The only question is, when history looks back at this critical transition, will your institution be remembered as a pioneer or a relic of the past? Thanks for joining this explainer.